What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolve video. So in the last couple videos we were talking about the new Cinderella girl starter decks, but today we're going to be talking about the actual cards that come out in the set, and today we're going to be starting with Forestcraft. And if you haven't watched any of the other videos, I encourage you to go ahead and watch them because the starter decks do have at least a little bit of value in them in terms of like a little bit of cards and legendaries and whatnot. But outside of that, I want to give a disclaimer that I do not know any of the Idolmaster Cinderella Girls characters outside of Honda Mio. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so the first card we're going to be looking at is Takamori Aiko. So she's a 3-cost 2/2. You can evolve her for 1, and when she comes into play, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and from among them you may reveal a passion card and put it to your hand. Put the rest to the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so it looks like if you're going to be picking up the Passion starter deck, this is going to be one of the legendaries you're probably going to be looking towards because all of the Passion cards in the starter deck, of course, are going to be Passion cards. So let's see what other Passion cards there might be in this set. Alright, looking at Aiko Evolve, so she turns into a 3/3, but on Evolve you put a Passion follower with an original cost of 3 less from your hand onto the field. Alright, so I really like cards like that, a 2-for-1 special, and especially if you're going to be playing this follower for 3 and then evolving her and then putting another Passion follower into the field and then you get that Passion follower's fanfare effects. I feel like I really enjoy cards like that. Alright, and next up we have Meikawa Miku. So she's a 2-cost 3/1. She's a strike ability, so when she swings, you choose a follower on the enemy field, deal 2 damage to it, and you can also activate for 1 play point and 1 lesson, and this card gets Storm. So it looks like you have a total of 3 play points in total. You can give this card Storm, which is pretty nice, a 3-cost Storm for 3 damage. And then when she swings, you're able to deal 2 damage to something, so in the early game, you can go ahead and get rid of those early game pesky followers. Alright, next up we have Kitami Yuzu. So she's a 1-cost 1/1. You can evolve her for 2 and she has Ward. She also has an activate ability. For less than 1, you can choose another card with an original cost of 1 or less from your field and put it to your hand, and this ability can only be used once per turn. Alright, so it looks like this card's going to be a little bit of a weird Nature's Guidance or a Floral Breeze in a sense. You're going to be putting a card that costs 1 or less back to your hand, and unfortunately not going to get any heal effects, but you do have a 1-cost 1/1 Ward, and let's go ahead and see what that evolve does. Alright, looking at the Yuzu Evolve, so she turns into a 2/2, she still has Ward, but on Evolve you choose another card with an original cost of 2 or less from the enemy field and put it to hand. And you can activate for 1 lesson, you can choose another card with an original cost of 1 or less from your field and put it to hand, and this ability can only be used once per turn. So don't mind the exact wording. I'm pretty sure when you're choosing the 2-cost or less follower, you're going to be just putting it to their hand and not put it to your hand, if anybody had any little bit of confusion about that. But bouncing a card back to your hand, especially if a 2 or less follower, you know, something that might have Ward, we're looking at like Demon Pandemonium, cards that are not going to get the last word, so putting them back to their hand and then either like going for an aggressive route and swinging into them is just very good. Alright, next up we have Anastasia. So she's a 5-cost 2/4, and when you play a card during your turn, if it's the 3rd card this turn, recover 2 play points. If it's the 5th card this turn, give all followers on your field +1/+1, and then you can play her and she recovers 2 play points. So I'm pretty sure with the weird wording there, I'm pretty sure it's when you play her, if she's the 3rd card, you can recover the extra 2 play points, and then on top of her fanfare, recovering 2 play points. So she essentially becomes a 1-cost, and then if she's the 5th card that's played, she buffs everybody on the field, which is a little bit harder to get a little bit of combo 3, but sometimes it can happen, so everybody gets a +1/+1. But if she's the 3rd card, you recover 4 play points, so she costs 1, and you can continue with your play lines. Alright, next up we have Brand New Beat. So it's a 1-cost amulet, and when this card leaves the field, if a magic item in your EX area got banished that turn, you draw a card. You can also activate to engage this card and put it to your cemetery, and choose a follower on your field and you give it +1/+1. Alright, so it's nice that we have some recovery when we're using the Cinderella Girls decks and using the lesson ability. So now when we use a lesson 1 or, you know, lesson X, we're going to be using this card along with it to go ahead and draw another card and dig deeper into our deck. And then if at point in time we have a follower with Storm or anything, we can go ahead and get rid of this card and then give another follower +1/+1. Or if you have a Ward, and you can just buff up a Ward. Alright, next up we have Kudo Shinobu. So she's a 4-cost 2/2. And she has a fanfare, so when she comes into play, you search up to 2 Dorimas followers with an original cost of 1, or Dorimas amulets with original cost of 1 that have different names from your deck, and put them onto the field. Alright, so for a second I got a little scared. I thought you were going to be spending 4 to play this 2/2, and you're going to be adding the Dorimas cards to your hand. So it's nice that you're able to play the 1-cost from your deck. They're not going to be able to add to a combo. That's what I've learned in the past. You can add for the combo, but if these cards have fanfare abilities, or if you're going to be using the amulets and they have fanfare abilities, they're going to be played too. And if you have lesson abilities, they will be activated as well as you choose to use them. Alright, next up we have Aiba Yumi. So she's a 3-cost 3/3. You can evolve her for 1, but when she comes into play, if there are 3 or more passion followers on your field, choose a follower on the enemy field and deal 2 damage to it. It's kind of a little lackluster in terms of having that requirement of having 3 or more passion followers. I know it's going to count herself as well, but you know, having 2 other followers on the field sometimes can be a little harder task to ask for, and you're only dealing 2 damage to something. Alright, and looking at the Yumi Evolve, so she turns into a 4/4, and on Evolve you choose a follower with 3 or less defense on the enemy field. Its player puts it on the bottom of their deck. Alright, so not too bad in terms of evolvability. Of course, this is going to be for Cinderella girls exclusively, so having those 3 passion followers is going to get you some sort of good removal here. So you can deal 2 damage to something, and then potentially kill something, and then making sure the other follower is at least 3 defense or less, or vice versa, how you want to do it. You're able to bottom deck a card, so it's kind of like Lily, and then you can swing this card into something. Alright, next up we have Goddess by the Morning Sea. So it's a 1-cost spell. You draw a card, and if there's a follower with a original cost of 5 or higher on your field, you recover 1 play point. Alright, so it looks like this is going to be the card that's going to get us to like the 5th card played or the 3rd card played. As long as there's a 5-cost or more follower on the field, we're going to be recovering 1 play point and then drawing a card, and then, you know, sometimes you might even just drop Anastasia if we don't already have Anastasia on the field, because Anastasia really does work well with this card because we do recover the play points just for spending 5, so we can use this card, you know, start drawing cards, digging deeper into our deck, and then keep recovering the play point, and then potentially getting into a bigger combo play. Alright, next up we have Ayase Hanoka. So she's a 1-cost 2/1. When she comes into play, you choose another Dorima's follower from your field and you give it Rush. So this is one of the cards from the starter decks you will be getting in, I'm pretty sure, the Passion deck. So it's going to be checking for Passion in Dorima's followers, so you can spend 1 to give another follower Rush. And we have Momoi Aizuki. So she's a 4-cost 3/5, and when you play this card, if there are 3 or more Dorima's followers on your field, subtract 3 from this card's cost, and she has Ward. So making sure you have 3 or more Dorima's followers, this card becomes a 1-cost 3/5. That's not bad in terms of stats and for card cost, but you just have to make sure you have 3 or more cards, which is a little bit harder to do, of course, because, you know, having 3 cards on the field means, you know, we need to do more plays, or we need to make sure our followers survive. And next up we have Amai Kana. So she's a 2-cost 2/2, and you can evolve her for 1. And looking at the Kana Evolve, so she turns to a 3/3, but on Evolve you look at the top card of your deck, and from there you may reveal a card and add it to your hand. If it's a cute card, add 2 to your leader's health. So this is a card that's going to be in the cute starter deck. You just have to make sure you're running the cute archetype to get the most out of this card, but it's not the stipulation of you just get to look at the card and you have to make sure it's a cute card to add it to your hand. You just look at the top card, you can add it to your hand no matter what, but if it's a cute card, you get to add 2 to your leader's health along with it. Alright, and we have Umeke Otoha. So she's a 2-cost 1/3, and whenever you play a card, you choose a follower from the enemy field and deal 1 damage to it. If you haven't watched the past video when I was talking about this card, this is just a worse archer with worse stats. It's going to be more for the deck, so you're able to, you know, ping followers as you go for those early games and stuff like that. But this is definitely an archer with worse stats and no evolve. And next up we have a single vessel, so it's a 2-cost amulet. So fanfare and last words, you choose a follower from the enemy field and deal 3 damage to it. You can also activate for 2 play points to engage this card and discard a card, and you put this card into your graveyard. Alright, so it's nice that we're able to be using a sort of spell weaving, and I'm using that with like air quotes of course, to deal 3 damage to something. And the fanfare is pretty good, you just spend 2 to deal 3, and then unfortunately you're gonna have to spend 2 again and get rid of one of your cards from your hand, which, you know, in the other sets there's a card where you're able to just, you know, get cards out of your cemetery and go ahead and play them. So if you want to synergize it with this, it'd be very nice, and deal 3 damage, so dealing 6 damage in total if you're gonna be spending 4 play points. Alrighty, and lastly, here are the alt art cards that you will be able to pull from the Forest set, and these are the signature cards. So we have the Anastasia and the 2 asterisks with the 2 signatures. They look very beautiful, and I hope you guys are able to pick them up. But alrighty guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Also, I have BCS this weekend, so look forward to some potential deck profiles that I will be putting that got top 4 or top 3, whatever the numbers I do decide, or whatever people have time to do some recordings and whatnot. I'll try and catch them in person. But alrighty guys, make sure you're safe in whatever you do tonight, and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Yeah. T RINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do. Just to get you away. You pull me too close, now we hesitate.